We're those guys. Hey, you see these guys over there? What about those guys? I'm Alex Hardy. With me, as always, Nick Ferguson, former 10-year NFL safety, who looks like he's standing up right now. I got to sit up a little higher in my chair. What's going on, my man, Nick? It's the conclusion of Week 6.
Yes, the conclusion of week 6. And once again, give it to the NFL for finding a way to squeeze every morsel. I don't know about you, but I had to go with the split screen, right?
Yeah.
Like the Bills and the Falcons and the Commanders and the Bears. But I have to say this. I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row that Buffalo has fallen. What's happening with Sean McDermott's team?
It's a great question. We can break this out, a number of ways because they were just completely outclassed by, of all teams, the Atlanta Falcons. I believe the same team that lost 30-0 to Carolina. Which,
Yeah.
hey, look, we'll get to those Panthers as well. This is Week 6. We got a Monday night doubleheader, so we'll certainly start there. But we've got other games to discuss from Sunday, yesterday. It's currently Monday night, and I think it's so cool. We talked about a doubleheader where, as of this timing, if you're listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube, it is currently the fourth quarter for the Commanders and the Bears right now. So we do have, the Bills and the Falcons. We'll start with Buffalo losing 2 in a row, Nick. It starts with the offense, right? Definitely a bit of a clunker. I didn't realize missing Dalton Kincaid would hurt them as much as it did. Not just because he's on the football field, but they were trying to change their identity on offense. One of the teams that led the National Football League in 12 personnel usage, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, which kind of allowed them to have the running game. They get down early. They don't have their primary tight end, so we see a lot more Khalil Shakir. We see 11 personnel, and a team that just, despite being effective running the football, and this being a one-score game for a majority of the second half, they try to make Josh Allen play hero ball, Nick. That's how I saw it on offense.
Well, you know what? That's the great thing about what the Falcons have done as of late. I know you mentioned that losing to the Panthers and that very dismal lopsided loss, but since then they've been playing great ball defensively.
Yeah.
And they had an excellent game plan for Josh Allen, the guy who was perceived as being indefensible, right? They forced him to play the quarterback position as you try to do with most mobile quarterbacks. And even when he tried to run, when he saw no one was open downfield, they did a great job of falling off of their blockers, wrapping up his legs, and making sure there was no large gains from the quarterback. But give it to Raheem Morris, man. They did a great job with the Falcons. And is it safe to say, because I know after that Panthers game, there was a lot of doubts whether Kirk Cousins should be inserted back into the lineup. But after the past couple of weeks, is Michael Penix now the guy?
Yeah, firmly supplanted himself. They got those wins against the Commanders, the win against the Bills tonight, obviously. You got to give credit to the defense too. Look, we've gotten about 4 minutes in already talking about this game, and we did not mention Bijan Robinson once. So it goes without saying that the amount of work that he did made life easier, whether it was Michael Penix or if it was Kirk Cousins. But the connection with Drake London as well was on point. This is hindsight because he finally had another breakout game. But what I thought was interesting coming into the year, Drake London was asked about switching quarterbacks, right? Going from Kirk Cousins, a righty, to Michael Penix, a lefty. And he said, it shouldn't be a big deal. I'm actually left-handed. And I don't know if that means anything, but I felt that much more confident drafting him and being rewarded with an outstanding performance for Monday Night Football. So it's a lot of I'm long-winded in saying Michael Penix was effective. He got the ball out on time, and the Bills' defense, that's really where the primary issue is. I think the Falcons, caught the Bills off guard. The number that I want to roll with for the Falcons' defense before we talk about that Bills' dismal defense, 56% of the time they blitz against Josh Allen, which is the highest clip that he's faced in 4 years. So whether or not they weren't prepared to face that much pressure, their guys still have to get home. And it's a very young defensive line that won at the point of attack and just absolutely dominated in the trenches. So I'm just thrilled that, look, I kind of complained about how the Falcons mortgaged their future, giving up a first-round pick for next year's draft to move up into the end of the first round to get James Pierce Jr. He's been great. That defensive line really came home, and Josh Allen and that Bills offense just wasn't really prepared. Do you have any thoughts on maybe kudos or roses for the Falcons, and then we'll get to that Bills defense?
Well, first and foremost, you have to give credit where credit is due. And I know the conversation is going to be, well, did the Falcons defense elevate their level of play, or did Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, did they leave their game in Orchard Park? And I'll say both of those things can be true
Yeah.
at the same time, but you definitely want to give credit to that Falcons defense because they did a great job of trying to bottle up Josh Allen, not allowing him to do what we've seen him do as far as those Josh Allen type of things. But here's the crazy thing about the NFC South. And for me, at the beginning of the season, I said, well, this is a division for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to run away with. And Baker had he continues to make MVP type of plays. Can't believe that was a guy that the Cleveland Browns kicked to the curb, but that's another story.
And the Panthers.
Yes. And when you look at the NFC South now you're saying Tampa's playing great ball. The Panthers, they just defeated Dallas Cowboys, so they're playing great ball with Bryce Young, and now it's the Falcons. So now it seems like we're going to get to a point in the season where it's going to be any team's game. And to me, this is the thing that makes football, really exciting, especially in the NFC South.
Right, you write these kinds of teams off, and now all of a sudden we get a very, very intriguing Falcons 49ers Sunday Night Football game where you'll see us right here on those guys a week from now. So I do have a theory as well. The Bills defense, which after week one we sort of chalked it up to, well, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry kind of exploited that run defense, but it's been a real issue. And it wouldn't be fair to one Bijan Robinson if we didn't mention the fact that, yes, he had 170 on the ground, but I believe as a whole, that bad man was responsible for 238 yards from the line of scrimmage today. Just incredible. Plus, he got the touchdown on the ground. It is just incredible to see what that offense is with him running through it and that Bills defense as a whole. So Daquan Jones, their lead nose tackle, gets injured with a calf pregame and was shown in a walking boot after the game. They lose one of their top corners, Christian Benford, in the middle of that game. Cole Bishop, the safety, exits this game as well. So, I mean, it is getting to Baltimore Raven level panic meter in terms of just missing parts on this defense and an offense not being able to carry the load. And I'm not quite there yet, but we were ready to write off the Baltimore Ravens. Especially after this past week, but we were ready to write off the Baltimore Ravens because of how their defense was performing. And I'm not sure, they let up 24 points, but just a ton of yards. How soon until the Buffalo Bills defense is holding back, an MVP and Josh Allen and what that offense can possibly do?
I think we are at that particular point. We watched Josh Allen and his Buffalo Bills team kind of suffer at the hands of Patrick Mahomes for what seems to be year after year after year, and this was supposed to be Josh Allen's year, right? Because let's look at what the league and the schedule makers actually did.
Right.
They gave the Buffalo Bills the easiest schedule. And I'm not going to say the easiest schedule, but one of the easier schedules in the NFL. That's why the loss to the Falcons is so shocking. Right, following the loss to Drake May, who, oh, by the way, the Patriots are in control of the NFC North. East. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the AFC East. Yeah.
Yes, AFC East. But it is strange how things have kind of manifested themselves. And watching this Sean McDermott defense, they love to run a lot of cover two. We've seen that defense really exploited by anyone. When you play two high safeties, you are now telling the offense, there's a light box. We can run in that box. And Bijan Robinson took full advantage of it. And the former defensive guy and defensive coach, to me, it was disheartening and really frustrating for me to watch it. I even want to throw my cap like Steve Spurrier, just watching the defensive effort by the Buffalo Bills. When you're supposed to be in your gap, run a particular lane, get off and fight off a receiver block, that's what you are expected to do. And right now, Sean McDermott is not getting that type of execution from his guys on defense.
You broke news to me. The New England Patriots are in first place in the AFC East. it has been years since I've been able to say that. And look, we're going to get to them as well, but I want to close out this first Monday night game as we're waiting for the Commanders and Bears to close out. We'll have an instant reaction for that as well. Here's my theory, Nick. The big news of the day around the league, Brian Callahan becomes the first head coach fired. The Tennessee Titans go down 1-5. And I believe in his tenure, 4-19. Oh gosh, I already forget. 4-19 as a head coach. So here's the theory. One of the names getting thrown around for a possible replacement in Nashville would be Bill's offensive.
Well, my bad.
The NFL's not going to play that. They're just not going to play that. He's like, it's so funny. They're trying to settle that lawsuit, and he doesn't want the cash payout from the league. He wants his justice, which more power to him. And we can get into that, but like, Joe Brady, the Bills' offensive coordinator, was another name on that short list. You think he could just sandbag this game in primetime the day that the Titans are looking for a head coach? So he's like, no, I'm comfortable in Buffalo. I don't need to take over. Like, Cam Ward is great and all, but I don't need this job right now.
So the 10-4 head theory is that the Titans were possibly looking at Joe Brady as their next head coach, but in order to make sure that goes away, hey, Josh Allen, just go out there and have a mediocre performance today so I can get them off the scent.
Just get deflected at the line of scrimmage on the possible, final play of the game that would get you within 3. That would be great for me. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, you know this better than I do. When you fire a head coach, you're looking for his replacement that same day, and you don't evaluate or take any other time to do so.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. But once again, if you are Joe Brady, right? I mean, do you really want to go to the Titans being as though you've seen the number of GMs they've gone through? You go from Malik Willis to Will Levis to now Cam Ward. And the idea is that you have to give coaches and GMs an opportunity to revamp and reshape that team in their own image. But we live in a world, and the same thing happens in college football. What happened with James Franklin, if you want to get into that too as well.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of this knee-jerk reaction, and there's not a lot of time and patience because every team, every organization, they think that they're one player away, or we want to enjoy the same type of celebration that the Kansas City Chiefs have enjoyed for so many years. Guess what? I mean, you don't have Lamar Clark Hunt as your owner, and you don't have the type of GM that they have. Oh, by the way, you don't have Patrick Mahomes and you don't have Andy Reid. So wishful thinking, but you're going to continue to fire guy after fire guy because you were chasing something that seemed to be so far away.
Well, I'm just saying it's entirely possible, and that gets us to one head coach that waited for the right opportunity, that being Ben Johnson and those Chicago Bears. And this is kind of exciting because we're going to kind of do this in real time, Nick, because I don't know if you have the game on still right now. I switched my 2 screens. We had the 2 Monday Night Football games, but we also had the Dodgers beating out the Brewers, which I had on. So I'm kind of excited here because we've got Jake Moody, former Niners kicker, lining up on 2nd and 12 here with 3 seconds left to go in the game. His last field goal attempt from 48 was blocked. So, look, Chicago's down 2. This kick from the 49ers outcast could give them the victory, that sweet taste of revenge after how things went last year, and Noah Brown being on the receiving end of that Hail Mary from Jaden Daniels. From 38, that kick is good. The Bears improved to 3-2. Commanders are 3-2 as well. Math. Oh, my God, math. What are we now? They're 3-2, and the Commanders are 3-3 because the Bears came off that bye. So Chicago putting themselves in position here in the NFC North, staying competitive with that winning record. All in all, clean game from Caleb Williams, 17-29 for 252 and a touchdown. That running game finally got going. DeAndre Swift, 108 yards on the ground, almost 8 yards a clip. Plus, he led the team receiving 2 catches. He had that 55-yarder for a touchdown. And look, coming off the bye, some of their younger guys getting more involved. Kyle Monungai had 6 touches. Luther Burden leads all receivers with 4 catches, 51 yards. Still waiting on Colston Loveland, though. He got 2 catches compared to Cole Kmet's 1, and they get the victory over the Washington Commanders, 25-24.
This was a bad night for me all around. Uh,
Uh-oh.
I took the Commanders and the under in this particular game because I thought it was going to be somewhat of a defensive kind of contest. And to make matters worse, I didn't start Drake London, and I didn't start DeAndre Swift.
How do you what kind of roster do you have that keeps those guys on the bench? I mean, particularly London.
Well, you know what? I thought that Cortland Sutton would have somewhat of a decent
Oh
game
no.
against the Jets because he's their wide receiver one. And as far as the running backs were concerned, I thought Ashton Genty had somewhat of a decent matchup. That
He did.
He was going to perform well. I didn't really do the way that I thought that he was going to do. And then, you know what? I really screwed everything up. I decided that I was going to start, Jordan Love, right? Because they were playing against Cincinnati. I was like, oh, you know what? That's a
Sure.
great matchup because looking at what Bo Nix was able to do, he didn't come through, and I left Andrew Jones on the bench.
Nick, I mean, look, we can. I love this, although I am probably not the authority that I should be because after how my leagues played out, I am 3-3 in 4 of my 5 leagues. So I am just the perfect example of mediocrity. I could be a lot worse.
I mean,
I could be.
Yes, you're 500.
I can't even say I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers of fantasy football anymore because they're leading the AFC North at 4-1, and I'm just boring, dry, not any fun to watch. But it was kind of there were some conditions tonight, and there were a few turnovers. I mean, Jaden Daniels turned the ball over. But he was able to at least move the ball. Their issues continue to be the running game. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Bill didn't necessarily follow up, although they tried to. He carried the ball 17 times, completely dominating in this one. But this looks like a team that is just missing too many of their weapons and desperately needs that deep threat in Terry McLaurin. On the defensive end, the big play that DeAndre Swift sprung open, I believe his primary defender on that play, and God love him because he led the team in tackles and is a legend. Future Hall of Famer, Bobby Wagner just cannot keep up in coverage anymore. He can't do that.
Well, you know what? Everyone finds themselves in this particular predicament where you've been playing for a long period of time, and there are the congratulatory claps for you having so much longevity, but eventually, Father Time comes for us all. I mean, I know for you being a Patriots fan, you thought it was going to go on forever with number 12. But then, even that, too, had an expiration date. So what we're seeing right now with Bobby Wagner, he's still an extraordinary player. But, yeah, the foot speed is going to be an issue. And I anticipate more teams looking to attack him in this particular way, kind of get him in open space and use more of a speedier back. But I still give the savvy veteran credit for, understanding this and then trying to figure out a way. But, yeah, like I said, man, Father Time comes for us all. But, you mentioned it, Bobby Wagner is a future Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels, 2 turnovers. Bill fumbled it as well. In a 1-point loss, you turn the ball over 3 times, and you miss a field goal. That's the difference in it right there. So interesting to see kind of how the teams recover. Chicago obviously having the benefit of the bye week, an early bye week, which is really beneficial, for a team that has a lot of young players. I mentioned Luther Burden and Colson Loveland on the offense. Caleb Williams in his second year as well, but just Ben Johnson effectively figuring out what plays to kind of chuck, what ones to highlight and accentuate for that offense. So I'm excited. I'm curious to see. Washington has the Cowboys, and then they're at the Chiefs on Monday Night Football the next couple of weeks before hosting Seattle, and then Detroit. Like, they have a gauntlet the next month. So this was a game they were probably hoping to have, but they've got a long haul. They don't have a bye week about 6 weeks from now. So those teams are kind of headed in opposite directions, but really they stack up, within the NFC.
Here's what I want to add to that, because once again, for everything that we thought heading into the season, which teams are going to be high and which teams are going to be low as they have been in previous years, how quickly going into week 7, finishing up week 6, things have drastically changed. And our front runners are no longer perceived as being front runners.
Yep.
And the Chiefs, who seem to be left for dead, they're finding ways to once again find life, which is not good for us here in Broncos country. No, we really don't like that idea. And Rashid Rice is going to come back. So for me, if you are an odds maker, you love what it is that you're seeing. If you're Roger Goodell and you're sitting in Park Avenue, you love this because there's a lot of parity that we're seeing right now. We're seeing bottom teams or bottom feeder teams performing well. We're also seeing teams like the Chargers. We're seeing teams like the Bills and San Francisco try to fight through that injury bug and that adversity, and seeing which teams at the end can fight through that war of attrition. So 2025 is going to be one of those years we look back and say, well, what a year it was, and look at how many teams really was able to kind of flip the switch per se, and really change things and how we look at the game.
I mean, that's, maybe we start right there with that game. Tampa Bay 30, San Francisco 49, 49ers scoring 19. I'm Alex Hardy. He's Nick Ferguson. Let's touch on a couple Sunday games before we head on out of here. Looking ahead to week number 7 already. Look, the two teams that are more banged up than anybody else, I made excuses for the Buffalo Bills tonight, but Baker Mayfield and that team were without Bucky Irving, without their top 2 receivers, and they get the job done, 30-19, as I said. But the straw that broke the camel's back, San Francisco was winning these games despite all the injuries. But Fred Warner, for me, losing him for the rest of the season, that's kind of it. The heartbeat of that defense, the quarterback of the defense, I should say. You can overcome just about anything. They were already without Nick Bosa and still being effective, but I think that sucks the life out of them, frankly, even if Mac Jones continues to fill in admirably for Brock Purdy.
Yeah, because when you think about San Francisco's defense, or the team collectively, with all the injuries, they've just been able to piecemeal things with some of their marquee players being healthy. But like you said, Bosa being out, and then now Fred Warner now out for the remainder of the season. It changes so much that Rob Saleh wants to do defensively, because when you think about what Fred Warner means to the defense, he's the guy with the green dot. He's the guy that gets everyone lined up. He's the guy that's downhill against the run. He's the guy that's setting the defense in the passing situations, getting his hand in the passing lane. Now you no longer have that guy. And I remember when Fred first came into this league, I was coaching with the San Francisco 49ers, and I just watched him grow and I watched him blossom, and he just kind of turned into the Pro Bowl player he is now, because once again, it was those early stages, those early struggles. And as a player, you never think that something like this will happen to you until it happens to you. And I wish him, a great, road to recovery and speedy recovery. But I can tell you this, man, as a guy that had 2 knee surgeries, and I know it's only an ankle with him, that's going to change the way that he plays the game, because Fred relies on his anticipation, his physicality, and his quickness.
Yeah. No, I mean, he is one of one. And look, it's a death knell for the season. He's going to push and work harder than anybody to come back to be at full strength. And then meanwhile, Tampa Bay sitting 5-1. Look, tonight proved that division is going to be more competitive. But it seems like if Baker Mayfield has the football just one more time, like escaping for that final drive, and he just finds ways to perform and do certain things on the football field that you just don't expect. I mean, maybe it's his diminutive stature. Maybe it's just like he's not, as physically gifted as some of the other guys. But the guy will put on a rope to Tez Johnson, all 145 pounds of him, or he's just going to shake off would-be tacklers and just will this game to stay alive in their favor. So I'm pumped for Baker. I mean, the number of teams that gave up on him, and now being, connected with his third offensive coordinator, he's gotten his previous 2 head coaching jobs. Like it is it is a fun team to watch with just a bunch of dudes, bunch of good guys, and Baker being top of that list. I mean, Tampa, the only 5-win team in the NFC as of right now, this being, what are we, Monday night at the conclusion of week 6. So they've just done everything that they could. They're storming right ahead, possibly getting Mike Evans back next week. Todd Bowles already saying that for week 7, when they go up against a very good Detroit Lions team, they're going to be out both Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving.
Yeah, that's a tough situation to be in, and to know that you rely heavily on your run game to give you somewhat of a balance, and now you don't have that guy. Just think about the number of teams who are going through that situation right now, and the Chargers being one of them. They're right now out there. Where's Waldo? Searching for running backs. Anyone who played running back. If you played running back in high school, and it's been about 8 years, the Chargers and probably the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would love to hear from you. But it goes back to the whole concept that, well, in the NFL, everyone thinks that winning and losing is based solely on the quarterback position. And like my father would say, you don't miss the well till the water runs dry. And for these teams who are suffering because running backs are getting injured or they're having lack of production, this is the situation that they're in. They're starting to realize how valuable the running backs are and can be to your organization, and more importantly, your quarterback.
I think on a larger scale, like obviously the outlier was both of these games tonight, but I was just looking at box scores from Sunday, and so many teams were struggling to run the football. It was kind of impressive, really, just guys getting bottled up like 2.5, 3 yards per carry, with the exception of tonight's game. So just a trend that I was going to keep an eye on. Injured offensive line, like it's just fascinating and something that I'm looking to watch. And these Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on Monday night, so we'll talk about them a week from now. Facing the Detroit Lions, the one benefit that they have is that Brian Branch suspended for this game after he sucker punched Juju Smith-Schuster. What I don't get is that. Hold on.
Okay, is it really a sucker punch?
Yes.
You see it coming.
No.
Right.
It's
just a punch.
Patrick Mahomes is stepping up to shake his hand, and he didn't want any of that frog leg. Kermit the Frog brushed aside, and maybe Juju's running his mouth. I'm not sure what happens.
Yes,
but my question is, you have 60 minutes to prove what you have 60 minutes to fight or bite kneecaps or whatever, Dan Campbell wants you to do in between the lines. And so you choose moments after the game ends to finally show some passion, to finally show some fight. That's Bush League. And now Detroit goes up against Tampa Bay without one of their best secondary players because he felt like he, wants to make a statement or keep Juju off TikTok for a couple of days because his nose is going to be swollen up.
Well, you know what? Listen, I like Branch as a player. Obviously,
yes, I do too.
You don't do what he did after the game, and yeah, I get it. You handle it between the lines, but sometimes there's things that happen in the game that you're not necessarily able to get your street justice, if you will, because think about how that play or that whole situation manifested. Right, Juju was cracking Branch, and he kind of hit him in the back.
Yeah.
Right. So Branch.
That's true.
I guess in that moment thought, okay, well, do I do something right now or do I not? Let me just go ahead and line back up. And then, if I'm not mistaken, also, when Patrick Mahomes scored his rushing touchdown, he looked right in the direction of Branch, pointed, and then he flexed to his ball, which should have been, I would say, and someone would say that's being too soft, but isn't that like taunting in a sense? Isn't that like throwing a ball or stepping on a guy? But yet I digress because they're never going to call anything on the Kansas City Chiefs. But
hey, 0 penalties last night. 0.
Right. So once again, you get frustrated as a player, and then just think about that. Patrick Mahomes extended his hand to Branch. Branch paid him no mind.
Yeah.
Right? He went right to the guy that hit him in the back, and what he did was he didn't hit him in the back. Juju saw it coming, right? And Juju was probably talking smack, and then Branch was like, I had enough. I'm going to give you some of this street justice. Matter of fact, take that with you. And then the thing was, and Branch, to be fair, Branch didn't hit him all that hard. But Juju fell on the ground like he was a soccer player or he was LeBron James. Oh,
flopping. The guy's coming in full
he's
speed, not
flopping.
expecting to get punched. I mean,
Oh,
his nose was bleeding. It's
oh,
just he's not flopping.
that was a flop. Look, go back and look at it. When he slapped him, he threw his head back and then started to fall on the ground. If that's not a flop, I don't know what is.
Well, we
Right?
do have the capability of being able to watch this in real time.
Let's watch it.
I mean, look, I'm going to find the right clip. Obviously, because narratives are narratives, we're just getting the crackback block from Juju in my timeline. Here we go. So basically, right, we'll set the scene here. We're just going to watch this in real time, react to it, and we'll see which way we kind of come out. So here we are on the scrum. Here's the replay. There's the frog leg coming out. Brian Branch says, no, thank you.
I want your sorry ass dap. Don't touch my hand. Where's
Right.
Juju?
All right. Pat on the back. Here's Juju with the helmet on.
I want that boom right there. What? See, right there. He mushed him, and then all of a sudden he falls all to the ground and all. Come on, man. Listen, Branch was wrong for instigating the altercation after the game was over. Right there, you see that? Grab my hair. Oh my God, I need some Calgon. Please take me away. Come on, man. Come on.
Look,
Come on.
not expecting the open fist. If anything, it wasn't even the contact with the open hand. It's his face mask getting jammed into his nose that makes him falter there. Like I'm not.
Oh, come on, Alex. That's the thing that probably caused the abrasion on his face, but it was just like hand to face, and then all of a sudden, did it take his brain that long to register? Oh, he just hit me. Oh, let me grab my head and fall on the ground. I mean, come on. Even Vlade Divac is saying, I mean, come on, man.
Wow.
Vlade Divac is telling him.
Wow. Contemporary reference. Shout out LA Lakers, Sacramento Kings legend, Vlade Divac.
Floppy Divac.
Floppy Divac. Listen, if I were the Orlando Magic, I would trade for him so Shaq could go over there 10 times out of 10, without a doubt in my mind. Okay, so the Chiefs kind of reestablished themselves. We mentioned getting Rashee Rice. That AFC West is wide open, especially with how the Chargers pulled out a victory from the snatches of defeat. I don't need to get into Tua's comments because we're not necessarily the hot take police, but Tua, you tell me if I'm wrong. He, more than anybody that I've ever seen, has had that Batman truth serum like injected into his veins, and there's nothing we can do to get him to stop. Like the context is whatever, but I feel like every time he's at the podium, you sort of get a Cliff Notes version of like Inside the NFL or Hard Knocks or something. I've never seen anybody just openly admit to the things that he admits. I just find that part of it fascinating. But the Miami Dolphins, I wouldn't expect Mike McDaniel to go anywhere. I certainly didn't think, what just happened with Brian Callahan getting broken off would happen to him. But that Miami Dolphins team, we did this, last week. I think I'm out. I'm done talking about the Miami Dolphins. How are you feeling, Nick?
Right.
Your team.
Whoa! We can't just kind of.
We can write them off. What are they going to do?
Here's what's happening, right? Tua is sick and tired of being the ire of everyone's negativity. He's inside the building. He understands and he sees what's going on. And yes, when he talked about the leadership, someone say, "Well, what about you? You are the starting quarterback."
He's the leader.
What he's constantly pointing out, if you're really truly listening to himself, he is the bona fide quarterback. The league typically makes that guy the leader, but inside that locker room, in that clubhouse, no, they don't see him in that particular way because other players are being allowed to do certain things. And I'll tell you this for a fact. When Russell Wilson was here at the Denver Broncos, a lot of people in the media wanted Russ to do that. They wanted Russ to tell the truth, but Russ would never really do that. What Tua's doing, he was like, I'm going to tell the truth. No matter how things work out here, no
matter how bad I sound.
No. No matter what happens here, whether I'm here or where McDaniels here is not, I'm going to tell you the truth. Most people are not going to like what it is that I'm saying, but I'm going to tell you the truth because guess what? I think all these guys have my back. They don't have my back. How can you call a players only meeting and players either don't show up or they show up late? That tells you right there about the culture, what is going on. So when he said the leadership, he wasn't talking about himself, Alex. He was talking about the other guys.
Of course, no, of course. But who is ultimately responsible for holding those other guys accountable? The leaders of the football team. The quarterback being the leader of the football team.
They don't see him that way. They
Whose fault is that?
They see him as outside. It's no different than when Russell was a member of the Seattle Seahawks, right? Remember, that was a team that was run by their defense. He was perceived to be the leader because he was a quarterback, but the Legion of Boom was pretty much running that team. And they didn't like him. Why? Because he appeared to be different from them. And what way, you may ask, is because guess what? He seemed as though, well, his mom and his dad grew up in the same house as them, and some of the other players who didn't have that luxury looked at him poorly. So I bet that's the same thing that's happening with the Miami Dolphins because, he is a quarterback and everyone's giving him all the play and all the interviews, but what about us? I know how toxic that mentality can be. So what Tua is doing is he is putting everything out on Front Street, and McDaniel said it himself, right? He doesn't think it's he doesn't think what Tua did was coming from a malicious place, but he did it nonetheless. And you have to ask yourself, why would you do that when in years past you didn't do that before? There's something inherently wrong in that Miami Dolphins locker room, and he's trying to tell us.
Well, if we think any of those leaders come from the defensive side of the football, they should look at the mirror as well. All they had to do was get the Chargers off the football field, and they just couldn't do it. They really just couldn't do it. So I'm done with them for a while. I mean, granted, McDaniels or Chris Greer gets broken off, like we'll bring him right back up. I feel the same way. I said that about the Arizona Cardinals. They proved exactly who they were, losing to the Indianapolis Colts, who somehow got 2 players injured in pregame warmups, which is, I feel terrible. Like it's an awful eye injury for Anthony Richardson when the Resistance Band snapped back and hit him in the face, and then Alec Ogletree just completely blows out. Oh God, why is his name escaping me?
Ward.
Travarius Ward. So it is just unfathomable where the Indianapolis Colts start off like that and then rattle back. They come back 2 touchdown drives in the fourth quarter, led by Daniel Jones and, of course, Jonathan Taylor. So I'm encouraged, and we talked about the 5-1 Buccaneers. And look, if Baker Mayfield, again, not Tez Johnson, your MVP candidate, Daniel Jones may be representing the AFC because that's a 5-1 football team as well.
Yeah, talk about a guy who was able to kind of revitalize his career. I know we look at Baker Mayfield. And Baker is somewhat of the poster child for that. But Daniel Jones, man, kudos to him. And that says a lot about Shane Steichen and what Shane Steichen has been able to do. But you can't even give Shane Steichen the credit. You now have to give credit to Kevin O'Connell with the Minnesota Vikings and what they were able to do to kind of revitalize and jumpstart not only Daniel Jones, but Carson Wentz, and Sam Darnold. So this is the year of the backup quarterback kind of coming back to life and revitalizing his career. And for me as a football fan, man, sign me up for it.
Redemption, second chances, it's the best. It's what makes this sport one of the greatest. One of the greatest matchups, not necessarily coming to us Thursday Night Football. We'll wrap up with previewing Pittsburgh going to Cincinnati, an AFC North slugfest. We'll see Joe Flacco going toe-to-toe with the Pittsburgh Steelers once again. This Steelers team just absolutely smothered the Cleveland Browns this past week. We'll touch on that game and kind of what the expectations are if they can continue that. I'm just baffled with the Cleveland Browns game plan. I understand they went down 9-0 in the first half, but poor Dylan Gabriel forced to throw 52 times against that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Jerry Jeudy, a number of drops yet again. Harold Fannin is not only the best receiver at Bowling Green, but he's also the best receiver in Cleveland. They just are all out of sorts, and their inability to run the football sort of just played right into the Steelers' hands. They absolutely, did what they could. 6 sacks against Dylan Gabriel. They were able to move the football. DK Metcalf getting involved, as well as Darnell Washington as well, the third tight end when they play those jumbo packages on offense. So Jaylen Warren, comes back in and is an effective part of that offense. I'm encouraged that they can keep the ball rolling, but I do think that Cincinnati's offense with those weapons will definitely put up more than 9 points on Pittsburgh, especially if they're missing Jalen Ramsey for a second straight week.
Yeah, you know what? I think the same thing as well. Flacco still can't move, in my opinion, and that Cincinnati offensive line has struggled this season, but his only, I guess, Joe Flacco's saving grace is he had the wide receivers. But
he's willing to throw it to him, too. He's willing to throw it.
And I don't think he's going to have Mike Gesicki because I think he's going to be injured for that game as well. So it still should be exciting considering the fact that Mike Tomlin did make his opinion known when talking about Andrew Berry and letting Joe Flacco go, trying to figure out what is it that you guys are doing. You had Joe Flacco as your number one all offseason. He started the first couple of games for you. Oh, and by the way, you trade him to a team within the division who are struggling at the quarterback position. I thought the idea was to kind of find ways to beat people in your division, not give them a leg up. But also, we're still talking about the Cleveland Browns. And when you talk about all the dysfunction, are we to expect anything less than dysfunction when we're talking about the Cleveland Browns?
How many times do we need to bring up Baker Mayfield used to play for this team, one playoff game for this team against Pittsburgh, and yet here they are trading him to pay a complete creep a fully guaranteed contract that was looked into as a form of collusion, and it's just an unmitigated disaster. However, the Cincinnati Bengals have their own issues. I would love to see a high-scoring game, but that is just not in the DNA of the AFC North. So I do give the edge to Pittsburgh, even though they do travel going to Cincinnati. That is where we will start when we open up week number 7 for those guys. You can find us. We'll probably be here after Thursday Night Football. We'll see how our schedules align, but that's what we like to do. We get to react, whether it's for a Monday night doubleheader or for Thursday as well. But a bit of a jumbo edition of the Week 6 recap. I'm glad we got to as many games as we could. We didn't get to every single one of them, so if you want to hear from Nick about your and his Denver Broncos, you can hit him up at Nick Ferguson _25. You can find me, Alex Hardy, at A_HAHDEE. My last name, Hardy, with a Boston accent. I'm just excited for what we have in store with both of our football teams, Nick, and yours as well. So remember, you can find us, those guys, on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. We'll be here Week 7, Nick. Well, before we head on out of here, Nick, what do you have to say to the people?
Hey, Lassie, what is that you're saying, girl? What? The Cleveland Browns are falling in the well. Yes, exactly. The Cleveland Browns are falling in the well, and they can't get up.
So, is Lassie part of the dog pound?
No, Lassie's trying to get the hell away from the dog pound.
Woof, woof.